So I am going to talk a little bit about blooms and pruning and how to handle blooms and pruning in the middle of winter in California. I'm in zone 10, more coastal than inland. This is a young tree, so I'm going to be talking about two things. What we would want to do if we want to prevent fruit set, which in this case is what we want on a younger tree, and what we want to do if we would like to try to get fruit set on, say, a more mature tree. So this is a cherry tree. I picked this up last year. I'm in the middle of January right now, so it's sending out its bloom, and I would expect mangoes to be sending out the bloom. At least in my area, it goes from December to May sometimes. So at least you could say from January to April, it will be sending out blooms, even as late as May. It really just depends on what the nighttime temps is. I feel that once you hit 60, that's about pretty safe where you're not going to get another bloom. Some information has said that it could be above 50, but I've had mangoes that bloom in the mid 50s, even though after I cut off the blooms and I thought it was safe, it still bloomed and it was in the mid 50s for nighttime temps. So I would say above 60 is more when it's safer. So what you want to do with a young mango tree is, ideally, you're hoping for the first couple of years that it won't bloom, but that's usually not the case here in California. Preventing any grafted mango trees to bloom is very difficult. Even on small trees, they will tend to bloom. So ideally what we want is, on a tree this young, is you don't want blooms. Unfortunately, you can't prevent that here in California. It just blooms just because of a way prolonged cool nights. So at least what you want is not too many multiple blooms, and you don't want it to set fruit, at least for the first couple years until it establishes some good size to it. So this is the bloom that's out right now. If I was to cut this off, I'm in the middle of January, it would send out another bloom. So you don't want to do that. You don't want to keep on cutting out the blooms, and then the tree will keep on dedicating its resources to sending out more blooms. It's pretty detrimental to the tree, so don't do that. What you want is, ideally, hopefully this first bloom would set some sort of fruitlets, set some fruits, and then by the time nighttime temps are above 60, you cut it off, no matter what size the fruit is. Just cut it off, and for the rest of the year, you want vegetative growth. So that's how you handle a younger tree, and that's how you handle it if you don't want any fruit set on it. Now this is a more mature tree, and what I want from this, at least on some of the varieties on here, is I do want fruit set on it. This bloomed pretty early, somewhat mid-November, and it set fruit really before really cooler nights came in and any rain. So these look like they will hold, but for example, this is a long panicle right here. Usually if we get blooms before like the middle of winter, and while the daytime and nighttime temps are still a bit warm, you get these nice long, like 6-inch long bloom stalks. Okay. And I know with this, if I was to cut this stem off, it is going to rebloom again. That's not what I want, and this looks like really nice fruit set on this, so I'm going to let it be. But say, for example, you had something that came out like this. So this is pretty much all bad blooms. I mean, it was unfortunate that it came in the middle of heavy rains that we had in December and January. So this is not gonna set. Now, if I wanted fruits on this, you know, I would ideally want to cut this off, these new panicles, these flower panicles, cut it off and let it rebloom again. Now, the difficult thing is kind of timing that rebloom. So, for example, on this, these flowers are, you know, they're no good anymore. I know if I pick all this off right now, it's probably gonna try to send out another bloom while we're still in the middle of winter. And if I wanted fruit, I don't know if I would do that. You know, I don't know if I do that right now. I might want to wait until I feel like it's safer, when I would pick off the bloom and then have it start pushing out more bloom set, and then once the bloom kind of opens up and gets all nice and long and opens up and matures, we got into warmer weathers and we kind of gone past you know, the worst of our winter, and that way you get nice healthy fruits. That's ideally what you want to do, but the timing on that is very difficult. It's very difficult to time that second bloom correctly, and I've tried in the past 2 years. Both times the bloom came out, but it's still too early, and it still got hit by fungal issues in the middle of winter. But if you wait too long, right? If you wait too long and you try to get that second bloom, you won't. You get vegetative if you wait too long. So it's a matter of how do you time that. I'm still experimenting with that. I don't really know, and I know some people have experimented with that too, and it hasn't been quite successful too, just because of the bloom timing. So it's like, how long can you wait to remove these bloom stalks and get another bloom flush, and time it was you got it perfectly down where it's blooming, flowers are opening up, and during a nice warm weather. So one thing about these bloom stalks, I'm gonna just leave it on. It does not prevent blooming. So this one is already bad, right? You see this is already bad. I'm in the middle of January. Even if I leave this bloom stalks on, it's gonna most likely attempt to bloom again. Well, it will probably most likely attempt to bloom again. But what leaving this bloom stalks does, though, is it does delay that a bit. Say if I was to pick it off all right now, if I take off this bloom stalk, this old bad bloom stalk, it would probably attempt to bloom right away. Probably get another bloom like in another month, right? But if I leave it on, it delays it. But if it doesn't delay it for too long, this is still early in the season. If I leave it on, eventually it's gonna probably push out some more blooms. Maybe it will take longer, but it will eventually still push out the blooms. So that's one more thing to kind of use too, to try to see how you can manage your fruit set on more mature trees. And this is more mature tree, so I do want some fruits on it, right? So because I want some fruit on it, I'm gonna try to manage these used bloom stalks. Like I would probably end up either, you know, trying to maybe see if I could pick it off and force it to send out some flower buds. You know, maybe I'll pick it off in March or mid-March and see if it push out another flower bud, and then by then maybe it could be warmer. Whatever it is, what happens though is that leaving this bloom stalk on does delay the flowering. Doesn't prevent it, but it does delay it. And if it's late enough in the season, that delay, like if you had 2 flushes of bloom, that second one's bad too, and you leave it on, it's gonna be, you know, daytime and nighttime temps are higher, then it's not gonna flower again. The other thing I want to mention is that pruning. I would not recommend any kind of heavy pruning right now in the middle of winter. I wouldn't even recommend that much light pruning even right now. What happens here in our area, we get a lot of fungal issues and get a lot of diebacks on the limbs. So I've experienced it myself in the past years where I would see these fungal issues on the stem. You know, it's pretty bad. It's like spotty and so forth, fungal issues. And when I cut it to kind of cut it back to the good part where there's no fungus issue, the dieback still keeps on occurring. So it just keeps on moving down, and you could cut it back and it still keeps on going down. So I've seen it where you try to kind of get one step ahead of the fungal issue and cut it, and the limbs still keep on dying back. So I've seen it, and I've had information from other friends that have said that usually you get some of those dieback, just leave it alone and just kind of let the dieback just keep on occurring naturally by itself. It will eventually stop. But it seems like even if you cut it ahead of what you think dieback is going to be, you know, the fungal issues still just keep on spreading down and eventually kill off the graft. So that happens quite a bit, unfortunately, in our area. So I'm just kind of relaying the information I heard. I have not compared the difference between the two and to see which one does work better, but I could say from my own experience, I had a dieback where I cut it and it just still keep on dying back. I mean, I cut it back to good wood and it still just keeps on going back. There's nothing I could do, even though I thought I cut it to the best healthy wood. It just still kept on occurring and will end up just dying back and kill off the graft. So just something to keep in mind. You should probably try both ways. I don't know what would be the best outcome. You know, as in terms for myself, if I see any more dieback, at least for my approach, I won't be touching it. I'm gonna just let it play its course, and you know, see if it eventually stops. Just kind of some information I wanted to relay to you guys. That's why I would not recommend doing any kind of major pruning on your mango trees this time of the year, just because they're very susceptible to fungal issues. So, you know, any kind of open wounds and stuff on it can lead to some more worst case scenarios when you do have kind of open wounds and pruning of branches. Now, if you did prune some of these branches back in this time of year, I would recommend kind of sealing off the wounds, spraying with a copper and sulfur fungicide just to be safe. And that goes for the blooms too. When it comes to the blooms, unfortunately here in coastal California, I mean, my mornings, there's just so much dew, and then when we do have the rain, you would have to spray copper and sulfur fungicide. I would say a good once a week, just to be safe if you want to keep those blooms, you know. And that depends on the variety too. Some varieties are more easier to contain those fungal issues. You could spray it maybe once or twice during winter and you're good. Some you might not need to spray at all and you still get some kind of fruit set. And then there's some that no matter what you spray, no matter what you do, it's just not going to set any fruit. So just keep that in mind. Like, you know, if you can keep up that routine of weekly spraying of copper and sulfur does help. You know, I haven't used much of that and for like several years now, I use mostly just a mineral oil with a kind of baking soda, and that works really well for kind of powdery mildew. I'm not sure how good that is for other fungal issues, but that's what I use, just kind of based on what I have around my yard. All right, so thanks for tuning in. Let me know you guys have any questions. Feel free to post them.